Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of Canadian Mosaic as part of Awaz Entertainment. I'm your host, Prashanth, and tonight our episode is all about investing versus savings, an insight to personal freedom. When we think of investing, one of the individuals that comes to mind is Warren Buffett. Did you know that he was only 11 years old when he first started investing? Now, investing and savings could be something very overwhelming, and frankly speaking, there are way too many things out there. Your realtor is asking you to invest in a property, while your accountant is asking you to do RSP, TFSA, while you have friends doing leases, and so much more. We're going to attempt to break this down on tonight's episode. I have the pleasure of introducing Sharath Sundar joining us here in the studio. Sharath was born in Chennai, India, and grew up in Waterloo, Ontario. He holds a degree from the University of Waterloo in mechanical engineering with a minor in knowledge integration. He's a UX designer and passionate about products in the healthcare industry. Welcome, Sharath, for joining me tonight as part of the show. I'm delighted to have you as part of this. How are you doing this evening?
Happy to be here, and I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, great to hear, Sharath. So I want to talk a little bit about your minor that you did at University of Waterloo, because knowledge integration is not something that is very common. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly is that, and did it kind of help you shape into the field of UX?
Absolutely. So my story is a little bit different than most people. I studied mechanical engineering at University of Waterloo, but I wasn't the best student. In fact, I really sucked at it. But what happened was, in one of my earlier years, I actually ended up failing a term. In Waterloo, if you fail a term, you actually end up repeating the whole year. So I had a lot of time to think. And during this time, my dad actually showcased, he saw this article regarding knowledge integration, a new program coming up in the University of Waterloo Bulletin. So he messaged me and he said, you should check this out. And that's when I realized that when I went and talked to the professors, I realized that this is something that I can actually be good at. I knew I would be an okay engineer, but I wanted to be great at something. And I think knowledge integration allowed me to do that. What is knowledge integration? So think of what a CEO does. He gets information from accounting, he gets information from the IT team, legal, product, marketing, sales, etc., and makes decision. So in the future, workplace is not just going to be working with one set of people. It's going to be working across disciplines, across the aisle. Even say like politics, for example, they have to work with legal, they have to work with accounting, finance, in order to make political decisions that affect everyone. But what are they trained in? They just train in one aspect, which is political science. So knowledge integration actually bridges those gaps. It allows you to understand a little bit of engineering, a little bit of design, a little bit of finance, etc., to allow you to get information from different sources. How do you work with different people, and how do you actually make decisions based on that? So
very interesting. So Sharath, how would you say that your education has kind of helped you with the whole remote work process? Because when we went to this COVID scenario, right? So a lot of us have kind of work from home. So
right.
How is this does this change a little bit on how executives and folks work with different kind of people? So has that showcased in your education by any chance?
It's working from home has completely changed the way managers think about working with different people. So they traditionally thought if you work from home, you're not going to do your job, or you might waste a lot of time. But what this allowed, especially in my industry, is it allows you to maximize on the time that you spend, and also minimize the amount of time you do in between stuff like travel or getting ready. So again, I'm in IT, so I can I don't have to wear, let's say, full pant or suit for a lot of my meetings. So sometimes I wear shorts, and that's completely all right. So yeah, so work from home is definitely a lot easier for anyone working in IT, I would say.
Absolutely, no, definitely. It's definitely something we've talked about a bunch of past episodes as well, so it's good to hear about that. So, you are a UX designer. Can you kind of break us down into what does a UX designer do for a living? Because it's a term that is kind of thrown out there, but people may not really understand what exactly is, because it's often, mistakenly with software development and other bunch of different things. So can you tell us what a UX designer really does?
Absolutely. So UX stands for user experience. We design any kind of experiences, either software or hardware experience that people interact with. So a very simple example is one of the main reasons iPhone or Apple became a $1 trillion company is because they focused a lot on user experience and design. So they even have a chief design officer, one of the first companies actually initiate that. And Steve Jobs, as a lot of you already know, teamed up with Johnny Ive, the chief design officer at Apple, to work and collaborate very closely. So user experience in a nutshell, is designing for experiences across any product or software interfaces or even any hardware interface. So you get to that answer a lot quicker. So I think engineering definitely helped.
Very cool. I know that there are topics around finance, but I just want to get viewers to get a bit of an understanding of this. Career switches are really common, right? A lot of people are kind of looking at, different fields to go into because not everybody enjoys the typical, IT work, software development or QA or anything like that. So what are some things that you would really recommend in terms of people that have a creative mindset, that want to have a problem-solving skill, that want to kind of get into this area? So what is your advice for those kind of folks?
I would say, if you're interested in anything creative, what I would say is look, UX is a very, very fast-growing field. For example, maybe 6-7 years ago, there was maybe 1 or 2 programs in the entire Canada specifically for UX. Now, I think Mississauga College, I'm near Waterloo, Toronto area. So over here, there's about, I would say, 8 or 10 different positions that's already available. So what I would say is reach out to people, reach out to other UX designers if you want to get into that field, make connections, and then just ask questions. More often than not, people have helped me just by reaching out that I've reached out to and that have helped me in my career. And also another thing that I would definitely recommend if you're looking for not just a UX job, any job is don't just interview for the company, interview the person that you'll be working for. And that thing has served me like 100 times more, because when they grow, they are going to grow with you. So your job will be to help them grow, and as well as growing. And again, this applies for any career, not just
Absolutely. We've definitely touched on it in the past episodes as well, too. I think the best way is to really get a chance to talk to the people that are proficient in that field to get a better understanding. So I think talking to you, people will probably get an understanding of what UX is and what are the steps you did and kind of move yourself into that line.
Yes.
So
mentorship is something I know you're very passionate about, Prashanth. So absolutely, reach out to Prashanth if he's very passionate about that topic.
Oh, for sure, definitely. So Sharath, I want to kind of retrack our focus into the subject of this episode. So you're really invested in personal finance. What kind of motivated you to look into this more deeply and decide that this is something that you want to do this personally as opposed to hiring someone to manage all your finances? Is there a motivation behind this, or is there a purpose?
Absolutely. My motivation is actually sitting right here. It's my wife, Meena. And I'll give you a little bit of a story. So I was really focused on collecting points for world travel. And she asked me one day, I know you're really focused on this and you're really good at it, but this is focusing on spending our money. Have you thought about making money for us outside of work? And that it just clicked in my head. And then I started looking into it. So that's what started my journey into personal finance, which we'll be talking about for the rest of the show.
Yeah. Give us a little bit more about it. So you're talking about spending money.
Yeah.
So would you say that at the beginning of your school days and things were you a huge spender? Were you more of a saver?
I did not earn a lot during school days. All of my earnings went into school, but I would say I was not an investor, and I was neither a spender. I was basically living.
Student life, the typical student life, folks. I think you pay as you go, you feed, you get what you want.
Exactly.
So we'll definitely going to talk a lot more about this, folks. So we're going to take a short commercial break, and after we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be investing versus savings and so much more. Stay tuned, everybody. Don't go anywhere.
आपकी रिहाइश ऐसी हो जहां जिंदगी की सहूलत मैसर हो, जो आपको बुलंदियों पर ले जाए, तो मिलिए रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के एक्सपीरियंस्ड रियल एस्टेट प्रोफेशनल अमित ओबेरॉय से। GTA में रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के हर अंदाज से वाकिफ। आपको घर खरीदना हो, बेचना हो या करना हो मुनाफे का इन्वेस्टमेंट, मेरे तजुर्बे से आज ही फायदा उठाएं। आज ही कॉल करें अमित ओबेरॉय 647-291-8102। अमित ओबेरॉय, ब्यूटीफुल होम्स यू कैन अफोर्ड।
KK Travel believe in providing everyone the first class customer service. We take care not only for your air ticket, but dignity and respect as well. We are available for you anytime on WhatsApp, even while you are in Pakistan or any other destination. KK Travels guarantee lowest prices and are open to price match any airline.
We are KK Travels under supervision of Gas Khan at 905-667-9433 or visit www.gaskhontravels.com.
दावत इस्लामी का एक शोबा जामिअतुल मदीना, जिसकी तकरीबन 891 ब्रांचेस दुनिया के कई मुमालिक में कायम हैं। कमोबेश 67,000 इस्लामी भाई और इस्लामी बहनें बगैर किसी फीस के आलिम और आलिमा कोर्स कर रहे हैं। इनमें हजारों वो हैं जिनकी अकोमोडेशन, खाना पीना दावत इस्लामी के जिम्मे है। आप भी डोनेशंस के जरिए इस शोबे के साथ मुन कर सकते हैं। आपके चंदे यानी डोनेशन को किसी भी जायज दीनी, इस्लाही, फलाही, रूहानी, खैर ख्वाही, भलाई के कामों खर्च किया जा सकता है।
Now it's fully renovated. Live catering, barbecue, tandoor, जलेबियाँ और fresh naan. तकरीब आपके घर में हो या घर से बाहर, Zoc is providing full service now, and Zoc has opened a new banquet hall, garden event center. आपका Zoc देखकर लोग कहेंगे क्या Zoc है आपका? Call right now 905-625-7786. Zoc वालों के लिए। अगर आप चाहते हैं खूबसूरत विजिटिंग कार्ड, साइन बोर्ड्स, बिल बोर्ड्स, तो कॉल कीजिए अमनदीप सिंह को 416-577-5128 416 डिजिटल।
Welcome back to Canadian Mosaic, folks, and we have Sharath, Sundar in the studio, and our focus tonight is all about, investing and savings, and we're going to get a lot of insight for the remainder of the show about, what it means to actually get personal freedom out of this. So, Sharath, can you shed some light in terms of what are the basics of personal financing? Can you talk a little bit about the difference between investments and savings? Because oftentimes people tell you to save, but saving is not necessarily investing. So, can you tell us the differentiate between the two?
Yeah, so savings is as it sounds. So you get your paycheck, you put the money in the bank, or maybe you move the money to a fixed deposit or something similar, very safe, and then you keep it as cash. So that's saving, and saving is a fantastic opportunity in order to get rich, but it is not how you build wealth. If you want to build wealth, you have to invest.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes total sense. So, in today's day and age, so a lot of us have, debts. Like, you have your mortgage, you have your homes, car, and so much more. So, what are some strategies to pay off your investments, right? For example, some things you have to prioritize over other, right? So, for example, home might be something you want to get rid of quickly as opposed to a car or or something else.
Yep.
And credit cards, of course, are much higher because the interest rates are kind of going up quite a bit. So what are some strategies in order to pay off your investments as early as possible?
Absolutely. So what I would recommend, first of all, before I give any advice, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm one of you who just got really interested in personal finance. So I just went out and got some information.
That's why this episode is special, folks, because I want everybody to kind of understand this from a common man in terms of what he does in terms of financing with his savings. Because a financial advisor can always kind of talk about what they would want, what they've learned in school, this is that, etc. So that's why his perspective is a lot more insightful for this episode. Please continue.
No, thanks, man. So what I would say is pay down your high interest debt first before doing any investing. So for example, credit cards are typically 28% or sometimes even higher. So pay down those debts first, because no matter how much you're trying to save, whatever debt that you have will grow way faster within a year, or definitely, and it compounds as well, which means it grows faster, the debt grows faster than any amount of money that you save. So even if you start investing, your credit card will definitely pull you down. So pay off high interest debt. So I wouldn't count housing as a high interest debt. So sometimes that's actually much, much lower interest compared to credit card or car loans. So definitely pay off high interest debt. And then what I would recommend is have some kind of a savings for emergency savings. For example, 3 to 6 months worth. If you lose your job, for example, make sure you have enough to cover your mortgage, or if you're renting, your rent for 3 to 6 months. And if you're a family, maybe 6 months. If you're single, I would say 3 months is what you would do. And then focus on investments. So for investments, I would say start with TFSA. TFSA stands for tax-free savings account. It's a fantastic thing that Canadian government introduced about say 10 or 12 years back. And what it means is any amount that you put, any amount that grows, you don't have to pay tax on it 10 years, 20 years, even 1 year from now. It's completely tax-free growth. So this is how you can actually build wealth. I know Peter Thiel from United States, he invested a lot of like Facebook stocks early on in the TFSA equivalent in USA called Roth IRA, and believe it or not, he amassed almost $5 billion within that tax-sheltered savings account equivalent in the United States. So this is a fantastic opportunity to grow your wealth, especially because it compounds. And compounding is probably the most important word that you will learn today, because that's the key to Warren Buffett becoming a billionaire. He invested in companies really early on, and then he kept it. He did not touch it. And after a certain time, it starts compounding and compounding and compounding. And after like the first 5 or 6 years, it starts amassing like almost like double the wealth potentially. So yeah. So that's something that I would say: start early, pay off your high interest debt first, and then start investing after you have the emergency funds.
No, that's brilliant advice, Sharath. So one of the things that, when you come to Canada, right, there's a lot of things that's going to hit at you. So when you go to a advisor or something like that, right, they give you so many options. So you touched a little bit about, TFSA, but there's also another bracket called RRSP, which is your retired registered savings plan. And there's also stocks, there's bonds, there's mutual funds, and there is so much more. Right. So can you break down the difference a little bit as well? Because, it is kind of overwhelming. So, your advisor is kind of telling you, like, put it on mutual funds because that's where banks make most of the money. Right. And when you are doing stock, that's when you can actually see growth on the stocks itself. So can you talk a little bit through about that as well as RRSP as well? Because that's something that, you need to be mindful of as you do on a yearly basis. And it accumulates over a series of time that you've actually been working in the industry.
Right.
So talk us a little bit about the differences and, the advantages and disadvantages of some of them.
Absolutely. So stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index funds, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. So these are vehicles of instruments. So they are assets that you can put it inside 3 accounts: TFSA, RRSP, as well as a margin account. So what are the differences between them? So TFSA, I previously mentioned, is a tax-free savings account. So that is something you can put in money and you can take it out within like a year or within a few days even. There are some rules in like contributing, how much you can contribute. There's about $6,000 per year since since its inception, which is about 12 or 13 years ago. So you cannot invest more than like 60 grand if you have never invested in TFSA. I would say the number is a little bit higher. RRSP is a little bit different. So as Prashanth said, it's registered retirement savings plan. So that is the money that you can contribute to, but so can your company potentially. So they are capped at about 18% of your annual wealth. Say, for example, you earn 100K, you can potentially spend or put in as much as $18,000. The thing about RRSP is, unlike in TFSA, you cannot take it out immediately. There are special circumstances, which I'll get back to it, but typically RRSPs, you can only take it out after you retire, and that's for most people around 60 to 65, I would say. The exceptions are if you are wanting to get a loan if you want to pay some down payment for your house, you can take out 35 grand, but you have to pay it back within, I think, 15 years. So there are some, and also you can take out the loan for a higher education. So if you want to do some higher education, that is an avenue that you can put your RRSP for. And the margin account is something that I would say for beginner investors to stay away from, because that is first make sure to fill up your TFSA and then go to your RRSP and then finally go to your you open your own trading account and invest in stocks or bonds or even do options trading, for example.
No, that's brilliant. So I think there's a lot of depth to what you just shared, because I think it's important to understand the benefits of TFSA versus RRSP, because TFSA, you can actually save in a lot of your money, and then you don't have to pay taxes on that. Whereas RRSP, the moment you withdraw from that for another expense or something, it's heavily taxed. Yes. And then you're losing a lot of the money that you're actually putting in, right? And,
excellent point. Yes.
Yeah. So another thing about RRSP is I think it only applies, correct me if I'm wrong, but it only applies to your first time home buying, right? So if you buy a second property, yep, I don't think that you can actually withdraw that.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, is that correct?
Unless you pay that withdrawal fee, which is very high.
Yeah. Yep. So you don't want to take out. So anything you're putting in RRSP, just make sure it stays there for a very long time.
Yep.
So Sharath, Sharath, like, I mean, there's a theory about having, so if you have like $100 in your account today, it may not be worth, 20 years from now. So this is something that's, there's a lot of factors that's kind of, influencing that. So is this a myth or a reality? Can you walk us through that? So to help you with this question, there's an image that we're going to show up on the screen. So help the audience understand this. So just talk us through what it's actually like. Is it a myth or is it a reality?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to show the image, so remember we were asking the question about investing versus savings earlier. So this is the graphical representation of why investing is much more needed, especially in this age of money printing or basically during the pandemic. So $100 that you have today in your pocket, and if you have $100 worth of items that you need to buy, it's the exact same. But 10 years from now, because of annual inflation, so this is assuming there's 3% annual inflation, but actually Government of Canada actually released statistics saying that the inflation is actually closer to 4 or 5%, and in the US it's higher than that. So what that means is they are printing more money in order for the pandemic aid. But what this does is it also devalues your currency. So a lot of people are thinking because of supply chain issues or that's why oil prices are going up, or because of supply chain issues, the car is costing higher or groceries are costing. So that is one part of the reason, but another part of the reason is also because in the last year and a half, Government of Canada printed about $500 billion. Just to give you an idea, that is about 20% of the entire money that's been printed by the Government of Canada since its inception. So that's a lot of money to be printed in such a short time. And that also could have a huge impact. So the impact that you can see typically is like your $100 that you have, because of inflation, because of other reasons, it is going to be worth $74 10 years from now. But the goods that you would have purchased for $100 today, that goods prices have gone up because cost to manufacture is also going up, as you can already see, and that's transferred back to the customers like us. So, but 20 years from now, that same $100 that if you had in your bank, if you had saved it up, or if you had it as cash, that is typically only worth about $55 20 years from now. And if whatever you wanted to purchase for $100 is now worth approximately like $181, for example. So this is why savings is just not going to cut it anymore, especially for our generation. You have to go out and invest. You have to go and educate yourself. And don't trust me, you have to go and verify for this. Everything that I say, you have to go and verify and educate yourself and get knowledgeable about like how the money that you're earning. Another way to visualize this is if your, let's say there's inflation is 5%. What that means is if your salary is not increasing by 5%, you are technically losing money. Or another way to think of it is if you're not making 5% in stocks, you are basically actually losing money as well. In fact, you're breaking even only if you make 5%, according to the Government of Canada's inflation statistics. So absolutely you need to invest, and you need to invest early in order to like protect your future. And future is only going to get a little bit more challenging, I would say.
So in Sharath, like in today's world, like everything seems to be costing way more, right? So for example, if you've noticed, the gas prices are going significantly up. And the groceries right now, ever since COVID happened in a little while, like, the $50 grocery is now becoming, $80, almost of $100 now. And think about real estate, right? So real estate is becoming more and more expensive, but, our pay and everything like that is still kind of, slowly rising, right? So what are some things that, are we experiencing like an inflation hike because we're not realizing it, or we're just like oblivious to it? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think we are almost conditioned to think that prices will always go up. And I think part of the main reason is people are not educating themselves why prices are going up. So that's why in my previous answer, I mentioned, go and educate yourself, verify anything that your financial advisor is saying, anything I'm saying, in fact. And you have to, once you understand how the money printing works, and like, I'll give you another example. In the United States, almost like, I think, $2 or $3 trillion was printed. About 40% of the entire money was printed in the last year and a half. So, but they're saying inflation is only like 6 or 7%. But I believe it could be a lot higher than that potentially. So unless you start investing your money, this problem is only going to like snowball into it.
Just a question, and from employment perspective, right? So are employers actually doing what's required to keep up with inflation? Because oftentimes, annual raise that we get here and there is a small percent. Like it may not be the same percentage as to the inflation.
Yep.
Do you believe that the companies are doing the right thing at this point? Like, are the raises that we're seeing is appropriate, or should we be seeing more of that, or are people are supposed to be looking around for jobs that are paying a lot more higher than it used to do, like I said, 2 years ago?
The market is really hard. I'm trying to hire a few people for design, and it's a lot more challenging than it was like a year before. So if you feel you're not fully compensated, definitely talk to your managers, talk to your company, and try to get what you deserve, because other companies are going to pay your market rate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's right about that. So I think right now there's a lot of competition. So if you do look around, there's a lot more opportunities out there for you to kind of earn more as well as save more as well. I think that's what's really important. Sharath, I'm going to take a little bit of a break and kind of play some games with you for a little while. So that's something I like to do with my guests on my show. So I call this game React. So essentially, and I'm going to ask you a couple of things. The first thing that kind of comes to your mind, just say it out loud without no thinking or anything like that. So are you ready to play my game, React?
Sounds good.
Okay. So favorite book? Why?
Crush It, because that allowed me to understand my personal brand. If you don't define your personal brand, someone else will. So go and get your domain name, because someone else is going to go get it, and they're going to define your brand otherwise.
I'll define the brand for you instead.
Exactly. I got my Sundar.com domain name literally like the minute I stopped reading the book.
Wow, that's really impressive. What's your music style, Sharath? Are you more of a rap person or like hip hop person?
I'm actually really into lo-fi hip hop music during work. I love this so much that now I started playing this during my work calls, and that's become a pretty big hit in my office. So.
Is that appropriate, Sharath?
It is absolutely appropriate, and this is only during team meetings, and this is something that's highly requested by my team. So I'm doing what the team wants.
Wait, are you saying that you play music in your team meetings?
Yes, I do. Basically, it's like we have a very collaborative workshops that I help run, and during meetings I tell them hey, think about this topic for the next 10 minutes, and during that time I play lo-fi hip hop music.
Interesting. I'd love to be in one of your meetings. It'll be interesting. Yeah.
We want to enjoy what you're doing, but also having a productive, fun conversation. I think I tell anytime that I'm conducting meetings, I tell them this is probably going to be the most fun part of your day. And most likely it is.
Very cool, very cool. It's definitely an interesting take to meetings for sure. Because oftentimes meetings can get really dry and boring, and it's half of the people are asleep by the time the 15-minute mark comes in, right? Personally speaking, sometimes happens to me too. So Sharath, as a Marvel or DC character, who would you be?
I love Iron Man. How innovative he is.
I see. So what is the superpower of Iron Man, Sharath?
Technology, firing a lot of weapons, I guess. Flying is a superpower.
Flying?
Using technology.
Okay. Yeah. So any superpower, could be any of the other superheroes. So flying is what you would choose?
I love flying, yes.
Okay. Not going back in time so you can invest more and all that stuff.
But actually, I want to change my answer. I want to definitely go back in time, and I want to become the next Warren Buffett.
I know, right? So think about it. If you just knew how things are going to be today, 10 years ago, just invest. That would be that.
Exactly. Yeah. Invest early, guys. That's one advice that I would give is start as early as possible. Encourage your children to invest. Have a savings or an investing account. Teach them about investing when they're in high school even, or even middle school.
Yeah, absolutely. Start as early as possible. So Sharath, our title of this episode is financial freedom. What does that mean to you? So what does financial freedom mean to you specifically?
It means having the ability to retire when I'm say 30s or 40s, rather than having to work my entire 65. And I want to work because I choose to work in the field that I'm passionate about. That's what financial freedom is. It's just not quitting your job. It's the ability to do what you're passionate about.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, I think a lot of us are looking for that. I think you have to work hard early, invest early, and then do a lot of your investments quite a bit early as well too. Yeah. So, Sharath, I want to go back to some questions. Oftentimes, people kind of outsource this investment side of your life to third party, or an advisor, or in other financial institutions or something like that. So what are your thoughts on that? Should people go this route? People that are really busy or they don't have the time to do that, should they go this route, or should they really take the time to kind of do this themselves?
I would highly recommend teaching yourself the basics of investing. It's, to be completely honest, if you spend just 10 minutes a day for say 3 months, you are probably going to know as much as your financial advisor, or maybe more, depending on what kind of resources you're going to be looking at. So invest a small amount. And one of the billionaires from China, like he made this quote: "What you do in your 20s between 7 and 10 p.m. is going to define what you're going to do for the rest of your life." So use those time to actually learn about investing, learn about what you're passionate about, developing like another skill set, so you can achieve like not just investing financial freedom, but like overall freedom to do whatever you want to do for the rest of your life from your 30s onwards. And if you're already 30, you can still do whatever I said, but it'll start like 10 years later.
No, that makes sense. That's very logical. So Sharath, like even though like you're encouraging people to do the research themselves, there are still some people that are going to go to somebody because they are subject matter experts and they feel comfortable giving their money towards it. And there's usually a fee or something associated with any kind of advisor or something like that. Is it really worth it? Like, I mean, if your money grows from like $100 to like $1,000 over like 10 years, is it really worth like giving these folks a fee in order for them to manage your money? Like, is it worth it at all?
I'm going to be super biased. I think it is not. And I'll give you like some numbers to indicate this example, right? For example, let's say you're giving $1,000, the same example, and let's say they are having a fee of 3%. So what that means is any profit that you make before the profit, they're going to take it and then they're going to give the remaining, and they don't take any risk. You're taking all the risk and they're just taking the fees away. So whether you make money or not in this stocks market, and most often than not, most people end up losing money. So I would recommend, especially if you're a beginner, do index funds or ETFs. What that means is it's a basket of stocks. So you're not just picking one stock versus the other. A lot of people pick the wrong stock and they end up losing money. Majority of the market actually loses money over time, including financial advisors or financial planners, for example. So what I would say is invest in like a well-diversified stock, like an index fund or an ETF that has international exposure, Canadian exposure, US exposure. So it's like well diversified in all the fields. And so what that means is you will build wealth slow, but you will build, and you're paying much, much, much less fees. And you're going to make the money at the end of the day, not necessarily the financial advisor.
Definitely. So I think there's always ways to make money. So if you do, I think what I got out of that is, take the time to really understand your finances so that you can take the risk yourself. You can manage it yourselves as well. So Sharath, like I think you touched on this a little bit earlier too. So is there such thing as a good time to invest, or even say, for example, because some people are like Warren Buffett is starting when they was like 11 years old, and some people are starting in their 30s, some people in their 40s, and some people maybe after they retire. So is there such thing as a good time to start this process?
Yes, absolutely. It's pretty much, I would say, in when someone is 10 years or older, I would say it's like a fantastic time to start. I actually watched a YouTube channel, which is where I get a lot of my knowledge. There are some fantastic resources over there. I can talk a little bit about that later. But in one of the channels, like this person has 2 daughters, and he started helping them to invest when they were, I think, like 8 years old. And they are actually managing their own portfolio. By the time they're 18, they're able to pay off their entire college and university tuition by themselves. And they started like really young. And 10 years is a lot of difference. So having small education, having these conversations, giving them some amount of money to like go play and learn, and actually encouraging them to fail, because the more you fail early, the more you're going to learn, and you're going to be okay with reacting from it. Failing is completely all right, as long as you learn something from it and then you fix it for the next time you do anything.
Absolutely. Like I think failure is a form of learning as well when it comes to finances or anything, and as a whole.
I failed a lot.
And you've learned a lot.
I've learned a lot.
I would say that you become more wiser and more aware of things that are happening around the world. So you talked a little bit about YouTube, right? So what are some other tools and resources for that people can kind of use on a day-to-day basis to get themselves educated, as well as stay on top of things moving forward?
One of my previous ex-coworkers, he left the company to start a YouTube channel, and a lot of my learnings is actually from him. His name is Adrian, and he runs a YouTube channel called Canadian in a T-shirt, which is why I'm wearing a T-shirt today. So yeah, absolutely phenomenal content, and most of it is completely free. Learning from the basics. Again, I'm not saying don't go talk to your financial advisor, but also verify. Don't just trust anyone. Verify yourself. And again, don't trust me or even Adrian. Go and verify the content people are saying, and then that way you're confident about what you're doing, where your money is going, and then you feel appreciative to like how hard you work to get there. So now you know what to do in the future.
Stay tuned, everybody. Don't go anywhere.
आपकी रिहाइश ऐसी हो जहां जिंदगी की सहूलत मैसर हो, जो आपको बुलंदियों पर ले जाए। तो मिलिए रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के एक्सपीरियंस्ड रियल एस्टेट प्रोफेशनल अमित ओबेरॉय से। GTA में रियल एस्टेट मार्केट के हर अंदाज से वाकिफ। आपको घर खरीदना हो, बेचना हो या करना हो मुनाफे का इन्वेस्टमेंट, मेरे तजुर्बे से आज ही फायदा उठाएं। आज ही कॉल करें अमित ओबेरॉय 647-291-8102। अमित ओबेरॉय, ब्यूटीफुल होम्स यू कैन अफोर्ड।
Take Gate Travel. Believe in providing everyone the first class customer service. We take care not only for your etiquette, but dignity and respect as well. We are available for you anytime on WhatsApp, even while you are in Pakistan or any other destination. KK Travels guarantee lowest prices and are open to price match any airline.
We are KK Travels under supervision of Das Khan at 905-367-9433 or visit www.gaskhan.travels.com.
अगर आप चाहते हैं खूबसूरत विजिटिंग कार्ड, साइन बोर्ड्स, बिल बोर्ड्स, तो कॉल कीजिए अमनदीप सिंह को 416-577-5128 416 डिजिटल साइन।
What are some other tools, Sharath? Like, I think you talked a little bit about Reddit as well. So is that another tool that you kind of use for this, or like Wall Street Journal perhaps? Or
I don't. I think anything that I have to pay, I'm usually like avoiding, especially if you're a beginner. Avoid any pay to learn things, because there are so much free information available. So as Prashanth said, like YouTube is a fantastic thing, but so is Reddit. So there are a few subreddits, which is like a sub forum inside Reddit called Personal Finance Canada, which is another fantastic resource that I even today, like I have it on my phone and I check it to see and understand what problems people are facing and how they solved sometimes in a creative way. How do they go about getting a mortgage in a creative way using the existing finances to work for the new and high rising house prices. So learn from other people's experience, and this is a fantastic free resource available for anyone.
Absolutely, no, for sure. So Sharath, like, let's say that you're in your 30s and you've kind of missed the ball and investing early, and you're just like don't know what to do. Is it too late, or what type of advice do you have for them? Like let's say someone's watching this show right now, they're like, oh shoot, I did not do any of this. I have savings here and I spend and I don't have any investments. What can they do today to kind of get them back onto this investing track?
First of all, thanks for sharing my age on TV, Prashanth. I really appreciate that. But again, like I don't think you're old. So I know people who joined university at like 40 and they were fantastic teammates, and I learned personally a lot from them. So same thing with investing. You're never too late to start investing. Yes, it's going to take a little bit longer, but you're going to take control of your financial freedom, and that is worth, no matter whatever age you start, you can still start every single thing I'm doing, that I'm saying about it. And again, verify everything that I just said. And you can start any age, and you can still be successful.
So it's not
something I personally.
So it's not too late if you're in your 30s or 40s. It's not.
No, it's never too late. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe if you're 60, maybe it's a little bit late. But if you're not 60, you're fine.
But if you're 60 and you have a lot of money just like laying around, like maybe you're in a lottery or something like that, right? So actually, that's an interesting question. So let's say that you win the lottery, and you won like $10 million or something like that. So a lot of people, of course, it's going to be heavily taxed and stuff. What kind of advice would you have? Something if you just have like $10 million just sitting in your bank account?
First of all, I think like almost 50% of that is probably going to go in taxes. Number one, and also, I read some statistics in one of my previous readings. Again, I'm not 100% sure of the source, but majority of the people who win lotteries end up losing it in like a very short time because they don't have a specific plan on how to do investing. So getting money is very hard, but keeping money is sometimes even harder. So knowing these information will help you protect yourself on where to put, where not to put, who to trust, and especially who not to trust. So if you know it, you can challenge them, and you can also learn with and grow with them. So
and I think like when you do win a lottery or something like that, a lot of people will come to you and they'll give you
Yep.
so many different options and things like that. So would you say invest in something like real estate, or would you invest in stocks? Would you do a combination? So what is your take on this? Like, let's say if I give you $10 million right now, what would you do with it?
I'll be completely honest. I was anti buying properties for a really long time. My wife has been trying to convince me to do that, but now I'm completely on board. And the reason for that is hard assets are not going to go anywhere, and there's always going to be reasons for having hard assets. That's why billionaires are really rich, because not because they have a lot of money in the bank. It's because they don't sell their stocks. What that means is they borrow against their stocks, and then they buy physical properties. And no matter how much your money is going to be devalued because of the money printing that I mentioned before, your land cannot be devalued in the same way. Yes, the market can crash, it can go down temporarily, but it will recover. Unlike the cash, once it's devalued. The money is already out there. Imagine if there's a small container of like say water, and if you more than what amount of water that can be filled, there's more water being put. That is what the equivalent of money being printed. So now you have way more water, but the exact same amount of people trying to consume it. So when there's more water, people are not going to be able to use it effectively. So the water use is basically gets drained. It's not as useful as if you have a limited amount of water. That was I butchered that example, but hopefully you understand that.
No, it makes sense. So Sharath, how important is it to keep up with the latest trends? So let's say, for example, you do put some money in stocks and you put some in ETFs, for example, right? So what are some best ways to stay informed? Because those are something that you need to actively monitor, make sure when they're going up, when their dividends are paid out, and all these kind of things. So how important is it? Can you just buy something and just forget about it for the next 20 years?
If you buy ETFs, you can exactly do that. Because it's so well diversified, it is meant to for beginners to, or even for seasoned people, to buy it and then forget about it, because the whole market as a whole will keep continuing to go up unless we hit a depression, which happened in 1920s, in which it took about 10 years to correct, but it still kept going after the correction finished. So buy the most safest thing. Even an individual company can go down over a long period of time, but buying a well diversified like an ETF will never go down if you consider the long term. Especially if you start in 20, you have about 40 years before anything will happen. And as I mentioned, even during the worst depression, after 10 years, the market corrected.
I think we kind of saw a dip on that during the COVID period as well, so because everything kind of went down, and then slowly over time it did kind of go back up.
That was the best time to invest, if you think about it.
Absolutely.
When there's blood on the street, definitely go out and put all your money in at that time.
I know a lot of people that have made so much money over the last little while because they just went in and invested at the right time. And another thing I want to point out is a lot of these financial institutions have these practice as well too. So if you are hesitant with real money, I'm not sure if you've experienced this, that you can actually use fake money and try to do this investing to see how your money grows, right? So I know, for example, RBC has one. Are you aware of any other tools that
Investopedia, again, a fantastic resource to learn about the basics of investing. And they also have a platform to basically buy stocks and play with it with fake money. Also, I think TradingView also might have that's a charting tool that allows you to do it. And also Questrade also has something similar, which is a brokerage that I use to manage the investment.
Right. I think there was a tool called StockTwist. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but it's kind of like Twitter for stocks kind of thing. So people used to tweet these are the latest things that are coming. I'm not sure if it's still active, but there's also another tool that's out there as well. So, Sharath, we are kind of coming close to wrapping up. So, would you like to kind of summarize or give some key takeaways for the audience? Because when it comes to investing, so we talked about a lot of different things. One was your career journey from going from mechanical engineering to UX, and then we talked a little bit about the different types of investments and how important it is to invest early. So is there any takeaways that you have for the audience?
In terms of career, find something that you love doing because it doesn't feel like work. I am truly blessed to have a dream job at my age, and find a person that you admire, that you want to work for, and that goes a long way. That's for career side. In terms of investing, even if you feel you're old, definitely start with your children, because when they start that young, it's going to make their life that much more easier, especially in the times that we're living with all this extra money that's being printed during the pandemic. So protect your children's future and start early, and compounding. Remember that word and go look up everything I said and verify for yourself. Even if you have a financial advisor, like ask them, push them, learn from them, and also you take charge of your own future to have the financial freedom that I'm hoping to achieve, and hopefully everyone achieves that as well.
Absolutely. One thing that Sharath mentioned is, push your advisors, right? Because, they are there, they are getting paid in order to help you understand this stuff. Although they might try to sell you with some of these products, but it's really good resource to kind of ask them, hey, explain to me what RSP is, explain to me what, stocks is. Like, ask them these questions, right? Because, it's your best interest to find out as much as you can and read the fine print as well, because a lot of the times there's hidden fees against some of these, mutual funds and a whole bunch of other things as well. So be mindful of that when you're doing so. And as Sharath said, invest early, invest fast, and invest smartly as well, diligently over a period of time. So I think you'll find that over a period of time, the things that you do very early will make much of a greater return over as opposed to things that you later down the line as well too. Yeah. So hopefully that will kind of get you the financial freedom that you're looking for.
Invest like Warren Buffett, as Prashanth said. Start early, start young.
And if you're 11 years old, I would advise you to start looking at this like right away.
Exactly.
So thank you, Sharath, for coming on the show. And it was such a pleasure learning about your career journey as well as sharing some very key insights about investing. On behalf of the Awaz Entertainment crew, we wish you all the very best in your career journey as well as your investment journey. And hopefully you will also reach the personal freedom that you're looking for. And hopefully we all as well. So that's all we have time for today, folks. I'm your host, Prashanth, as part of Canadian Mosaic. If you've enjoyed the show, please do follow us on social media. Remember, start your investments journey early for a better future for tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you at the same time next week.